The following is a special presentation of the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Welcome to Tough Enough, a recap and breakdown show from the MMA Outsiders, following every episode of The Ultimate Fighter Season 32. Team Grasso versus Team Shevchenko, presented by Playback. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Albano and Zain Bando.
All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Tough Enough here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. That's Zain Bando. I'm Tom Albano. Zain, quite the eventful episode. You know, we've complained a couple of times in this season that there have been just some episodes that have been nothing burgers in terms of content except the fight. But this week we had a little old school drama. We had a fight that had a finish. This was an interesting one.
Yeah, we had. You just alluded to it. We had old school drama. We had a very quick finish in the fight that we saw between Theo Carrots and Loader, and of course, once we get there, we'll give you the countdown in case you haven't seen it yet. And
we had two pretty tragic backstories in their own different ways.
Yeah, two very interesting and tragic backstories to say the least, and overall a very fast-paced 45-minute episode, but one that packed a lot for its punch, if you will, no pun intended, / pun intended at the same time. But before we get into that and so much more, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network across social media. You can follow this very episode as it's being streamed across a bunch of our different platforms here on the network. That would be youtube.com/ETB Network, as we are slowly but surely approaching 1,000 subscribers. So we would greatly appreciate if you like this, if you like this live stream, if you like Tough Enough, these extra shows that we do, the MMA Outsiders, my show, Bando's Breakdowns, or any of the other shows that we do here, we would greatly appreciate if you subscribe. You can't listen to this particular show wherever you get your podcast, except if you have YouTube Premium, so you still can take Tough Enough on the road with you, even if you can't see us. Well, that's a nice bonus there. We are obviously off this week. We'll be back next week, but you can listen to every episode of the MMA Outsiders dating all the way back to episode 0, wherever you get your podcasts, and so much more. We'll be back fast and furious, probably for about the next 12 to 13 weeks, as the UFC won't be taking a break for quite some time. So for those of you who missed us, we won't be gone for too much longer. And then, of course, you can check out all of our great content over on the blogging side, which I am mostly heading. You can go to etbpodcast.com to check out all of the latest NFL offseason content, NBA news, and so much more, as we are slowly but surely approaching another NFL season, as we have 9 Sundays until the first edition, Week 1, 2024 of NFL Red Zone. So a lot of exciting stuff on that front. But now we're going to move into the actual episode that was. So now we're going to move.
Hold on. We're going to get a penalty if we don't do that, because we have to shout out Playback, of course.
That's true. So just as FYI to everyone, we obviously have to make it very clear that this show and every single show across this network is presented by Playback, and they've been wonderful sponsors to us throughout their entire stint on the network, which has now been about a couple of months. So I'm just going to quickly do the ad read here. So presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators, creators, and communities that you care about. Win or lose, sports enjoy together. And of course, even though it is the NBA offseason, you can join our community today by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule, which
you have the giggles today.
Yeah, I do, which is only going to get busier as we quickly approach October. Am I right? Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But you have the giggles today. It's something else.
No,
Uh,
I sure do.
there may be just I don't want to put anything out there too much, but in the lead up to UFC 304 with the two title fights, there may be something that we originally planned to do for 303 to start with 303 that we may start with 304. So more info on that at another time. But there may be some MMA content coming to our playback.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you who like our MMA content a lot, I think you'll like our MMA content even more with the unannounced plans that we have in the works. But I guess stay tuned to our playback channel, if you will, the week of July 27th, and that's all I'll say on that. So
Yeah. Let's get right into the episode, though. So first, I think we gotta, we gave a lot of flowers last week. We still gotta give flowers this week, to Beck and Zig, just for their incredible fight that they had. Apparently, both had to be transported to the hospital as precautionary reasons, but at the Tough House, everybody was waiting out in the front for them and basically gave them all a standing ovation.
yeah, that's cool. I don't know if you've ever seen, and I know you've watched The Ultimate Fighter just as long as I have. Tell me the last time you saw a standing ovation for two days after a fight from both teams in the literal Tough House. I don't think I've seen that in a long time, or maybe even ever. So that was
Yeah,
really
the
cool.
last time I can think of a tough fight that ended up getting a ovation, I think back to the very first, the finale of the very first one was with Steph Bonner, God rest his soul, and Forrest Griffin at the tough
Right,
finale.
right. Yeah, so that's obviously going back almost 20 years, but this fight has its own special meaning to it. It's going to go down in tough history, and it's clear that these two guys have a mutual respect for each other. And I'm just kind of hoping maybe one day, regardless of who makes it to the UFC, even if they both make it to the UFC, I would love to see these two be training partners at some point. They obviously shared a lot of hard minutes together, 10 minutes to be exact, in a fight that I think could have very well gone to a third round. It obviously didn't go to a third round, but these two these two guys are definitely special in tough lore, and this fight to hardcore tough fans at least will never be forgotten. So it was nice to see that both teams did their due diligence, congratulated both guys regardless of
Could
who
you
the
imagine
winner.
if that fight went to a third round?
That would have been insane. Which I think, I know you disagree with me, but I think the judges made a mistake. I think the fight was so entertaining that the third round just should have happened, but that's obviously a discussion for another day. All I
Yeah.
can say is if the UFC plays their cards right, they can do a rematch for real in the literal UFC, and I think that would be fun.
I
So
would love to see that happen. I would love to see because I could definitely see both guys earning somewhat of contracts. Obviously, it's not going to be. It may not be the six-figure contract. It's not going to be for Beck, but there is the opportunity that they can still earn a contract after the season. And I mean, that would be something if their second, maybe even their first fight in the UFC was against each other.
yeah, I mean, I think it also makes logical sense, from the standpoint of people who watch the show, they're familiar with both guys. The fight was a good fight. I mean, I haven't seen anybody online say that there were negative reviews about this or anything. So I'm down to see it if it gets made, and I think it was cool considering that the first couple of episodes in terms of fight quality was a little bit of a lull, and then you had this one. So
For sure. Let's get into some of the drama though, because as much as we have the fight between Loder and Theo Karras, I think the big story of this episode was Edwin Cooper Jr. So I had made mention last week. We had gone 5 episodes, and Cooper Jr. is the first fighter that you see when they show the team Shevchenko graphics during the opening sequence of every tough episode. And for whatever reason, they just didn't put much emphasis on him for the first 5 weeks. But this week, oh man, they made up for that and then some. So apparently, Edwin Cooper Jr., according to some of the other people in the Tough House, that includes his own teammates, that includes people on the other team. Uh, Edwin Cooper actually trains alongside Begzad Usmanov at Jackson Wing, which we've talked about before. I mean, Jackson Wink, place, not a bad place to be at. when you're training for the UFC, when you're going to trying for an MMA career. You're short of a few champions, a couple of Hall of Famers here and there. So
Just a couple. Just a
just a couple.
couple.
And it's not like they have the consensus GOAT of MMA,
because they do.
I
And
know.
he has his own demons in his own right, which makes this whole thing super
Oh
ironic.
my god, the parallels. The parallels. Like it was unbelievable. So these teammates and other people, the other contestants in the top house, a couple of them have to talk about his drinking behaviors. One person, I completely forget who, so couldn't put his name in there, described him as this was a quote for the episode, being drunk 24/7. Cooper, for his part, during his confessionals, if you will, has denied any heavy alcohol drinking, though it seemed to
Although someone else who I can't name either, I can't remember who said it, said that he tasted whatever he was drinking and said it was booze.
it was booze, yeah. And they were watching a UFC fight night. They got the opportunity to watch a UFC fight night, and it was the one from March 23rd at the Apex between Amanda Hebos and Rose Namajunas. Because they showed the Peyton Talbot Cameron Simon a fight on
And how ironic that Rose Namajunas is headlining in Denver this weekend. It's
I
almost
know.
like the stars just totally aligned. It just made sense.
You mean that Denver card that's being basically held up by like tape and glue and all those arts and crafts tools? Yeah.
That's true.
But Edwin Cooper was kind of running his mouth a little bit, and basically it got so bad to the point where Usmanov had to pull him to the side and say, it's your reputation, it's your gym, it's our reputation from the same gym. Everything is on the line here. Basically asking him WTF.
Right. And you could tell from when they cut to Edwin Cooper Jr. doing the one-on-one exclusives that they do, you could tell that he was doing everything he could to save face, but doing a really, really, really bad job of it. Like you could just tell that he tried to put on a fake persona as if everything was okay when it really wasn't okay at all. And he's not willing to admit his mistakes. And
I think that's the part that kills me.
No, it kills me too, considering how much potential he has. And then to me, what's even funnier, he's like, "I'm undefeated. Who have you knocked out? I train with John Jones at the same gym. It's no big deal." And then he starts drinking, and people are like, "What?"
Seriously, and we're coming off of we're getting closer to his fight. We have 2 more weeks left of first round matchups, and he hasn't fought yet, which means his fight's coming up. And instead of training, I mean, he is training with the team session and everything, but he's drinking. I mean, this reminds me, Zan, of I don't know what season it was. It must have been one of the late 2000s, early 2010 seasons where there was that fighter who was getting close to fight time, but ended up partaking in a birthday celebration, is eating all that cake and
Gabe Rudiger, season 5.
Gabe Rudiger, yeah.
And Gabe Rudiger, season 5's. For those of you who don't know, he had a strong obsession with ice cream cake, and it didn't sit well with him, and he went into the sauna and he's trying to cut weight to make 155 pounds, and that's when BJ Penn had his infamous line where he's like, put me back in, and that's when it stemmed from. What was the ice cream cake? So the parallels are just unbelievable, and he's obviously not as bad as what Junie Browning was, but he definitely had some antics that were border in Junie Browning-esque, but weren't quite there. Which I guess is more of a positive and stuff. We'll get more into how Edwin Cooper Jr. ties into this story a little bit later. But the most interesting part about this whole thing was the training session post the incident. So we're gonna get right into it here. So Edwin Cooper and Ryan Loder are sparring. As we just alluded to Loader is the next contestant for Team Shevchenko to fight at the end of the episode, and Cooper Jr. catches Loader with an elbow, but the issue with the elbow was that he didn't have elbow pads on. So Ryan Loader takes offense to this, thinks he's doing it on purpose, and is noticing, and Team Shevchenko coaches are noticing the lack of respect between both sides. Valentina quickly goes in there, kiboshes the whole thing. Basically said, look, he apologized 30 times. He didn't mean to do it, even though, in my opinion, the video tells otherwise. But you could clearly tell that Valentina was upset, doesn't appreciate the antics. And to me, if I was in the same room being coached by arguably the greatest flyweight or greatest women's flyweight of all time, I would shut up and listen, which is what most of the team did, which is very rewarding because they could have easily told her to shoo off and go or whatever. But it was clear that she was serious and she wanted everybody to be a team. And you don't really see coaches intervene in that sort of way. At least I haven't seen it in the last couple of years, but it was very good to see. And it could have been much worse if Dana was involved. Thankfully, he wasn't involved in the conversation because I think it would have gone a little differently. And you've seen
Dana gave Valentina praise in his little sit down, like basically saying that he put that, as you said, she put the kibosh on it right away.
Right, and I think in seasons past, I'm just gonna say this. I think that incident would have gone a whole lot differently, and I'm sure you'd probably agree with that.
Oh yeah, there are some people out there that if some fighters there that it was them as the coach, that basically would have ended up in a mass brawl or something like that. And for Edwin Cooper's sake, this is just not what you can do. Now, I get why Shevchenko was upset with Loader because you know what, he threw the elbow, and whether he had malice intentions or not, like, and Loader kind of recognized it afterwards in his one-on-one that he's got a fight coming up. Edwin Cooper is not the enemy. The enemy that he is training for is Tom Theocaris. And he should not be, so holding to that. But at the same time, regardless of whether Cooper threw that on purpose or not, you can't tell me, because Loader mentioned he thought he was cut. You can't tell me if that happened, that Ryan Loader was cut, and either the fight had to be delayed or Loader was out of the competition, that Dana White would not have had a segment on this episode running down Edwin Cooper.
Oh, I think he would have, and I think he would have threatened to kick him off the show, and he arguably he might have been kicked off the show if it was any worse, and I'm sure you probably agree with that too.
Oh, it doesn't help that about Edwin Cooper's, it doesn't help with this, all the alcohol antics, and I'll say this. You and I have both talked about past seasons of the show, and part of that house drama having a little bit of the charm during that time in the early to mid 2000s where reality TV was basically running the show on television, TUF being one of those shows,
Right.
and we've talked about missing maybe a little bit of those antics, but and you know what, I'll even say there, I don't drink often, but when I do drink, I'm willing to have a good time. But when you have an opportunity in front of you
To be a UFC fighter.
right, and like I mentioned, it's not like it's week 1 where he doesn't know when he's going to fight yet or not. We're close to the end of the qualifying rounds, and he hasn't fought yet, which means his time is approaching. There is a point where you put down the bottle. I'm sorry, but the fact that they showed that bottle being empty, and the belief is that Cooper Jr. drank that whole thing. That's unacceptable of you as a fighter. Valentina is talking all about discipline, and it's pretty clear, at least what the cameras and all the episodes are making. Edwin Cooper Jr. has no discipline.
No, it's very clear. And to make matters even worse, that drink that we eventually find out was alcohol was originally meant to be Body Armor sports drink. So not only are you disrespecting yourself, but you're disrespecting the original drink that the UFC provided to you to help you in your training regimen. And it's almost a slap in the face to both the promotion and the sponsor that's promoting the drink. I know I may be taking it a step too far, but it was hard for me not to notice what the original drink was used for, and it's clear that he totally neglected it and just simply didn't care. So
no, it's absolutely disrespectful. It's unacceptable, And if Edwin Cooper Jr. does not get his head on right, not only will he lose this season, he may blow his chance with the UFC. Like you said, if this incident ended up getting any worse, or if his antics continue into the next episode, and God knows what happens when the actual fight happens, Dana may look at this and say, I don't care if you're undefeated. I don't care if you train with the greatest of all time and John Jones, you're done.
He might be in a situation where he's put himself in a doghouse where even if he loses one fight, that could be the end of his UFC stint.
He'll tell Dana with all this trauma, pardon me, and given the past trauma that he has had with John Jones, despite Dana's all defenses of Jones being the greatest of all time, which another debate, you can go watch that clip. Basically, he may, like you said, with one loss, he may tell Cooper Jr., go to one championship, go to PFL, go to Bellator. I don't care.
Yeah, you never know.
Let's get into the backstories, because both of these backstories for the fighters here were pretty tragic. So Ryan Loder, I mean, I'm gonna say this because I think it's pretty clear. Sometimes we hint at it on our show. Nick and I hint at it on ETB Sports. My full-time job is not within MMA media. My full-time job is in education, and I still study education. And the fact that a teacher told Ryan Loder's parents, he better have another, avenue, because he's not going to go into college on academics alone. I think that's an absolute slap in the face. That is downright disrespectful to Ryan. It is disrespectful to his family, and it's disrespectful to your profession. Like, Ryan mentioned that it was no secret he was a resource room child. Came to find out he was dyslexic. And I have worked with a few children, my short time in education so far. I have worked with a few children who have dyslexia, dysgraphia, and they are some of the most talented, intelligent kids. Just because they have those issues does not mean that, they're not smart or not going to succeed in life. They're not going to go into college, et cetera, et cetera. And Ryan Loder kind of also disproved that by how good how much he achieved, both in terms of what he went on to achieve, outside of wrestling, what he did achieve with wrestling, going on to be a coach, going on to have the successful career he's had so far. I'm sorry for ranting, but it is stuff like that grinds my gears.
Yeah, as someone who was a resource kid himself, and as someone who is very proud to publicly document what his disability is. I have similar sentiments myself, and it hurt me during that part of the segment to know that that's what he went through, but to parlay that into doing what he did, by going to Northern Iowa, becoming a Division I wrestler, pretty much paving the way for his own path in combat sports, and getting his second degree after undergrad, and really trying to keep his head on straight. That was the thing that really impressed me the most, was him just ignoring everybody who said he couldn't do anything. And I said this too off there, I'm going to say it again. I'm very curious to know what a teacher is doing now, because I can guarantee you whichever teacher told him that is definitely not embarking on the journey that he's embarking on. And I think that's the most inspiring part of this whole thing, is that he let every single person who told him no, he did everything he could to ignore him, and I think he's doing a very good job of it. So
yeah, well, I'll say whatever teacher told him that he'll never amount to anything, basically, he or she should even be working in the education field, in my opinion.
that's probably right.
Going on to Tom Theocaris, who, by the way, reminds me of a short hair Andy Samberg. I'm not even.
Yeah, he definitely does. And he also reminds me of like a mix of like a Wes Sims and a Trey Tellingman. If you take away the blonde hair, he looks very similar to.
You're right. Yeah, no, I can see it. Unfortunately, like, he growing up, he had a normal life and such, but unfortunately, they showed a tattoo that he had in the Tough House. He was talking about the tattoo with some of his fellow fighters, and it turns out that tattoo, which kind of was a superwoman-like pose, was the last picture that he had of his girlfriend. His girlfriend ended up taking a trip back to Greece. Tom is Greece. Tom is Greek in terms of heritage, living in Canada. Tom's girlfriend. They didn't go too much into detail as to what happened, but basically, Tom's girlfriend fell, hit her head, and unfortunately, whatever happened ended up being enough to damage Tom's girlfriend to the point she passed away.
Yeah, that was definitely a very sad part, and it's clear that he wanted to fight for her. I'm pretty sure her name was Ashley, and it seemed like they were very yeah, excuse me, Ashley
And
is Ashley's Ryan's girlfriend.
Ashley
Um,
Rhinsley,
anyway, I mean, it was clear that that's who he eventually wanted to fight for, and it's just sad that the closest person in his life at that point had passed away. Not to mention the fact that he was
Elias Theodoro, who
also
he
very
also
close
moved
with
close with.
Elias Theodoro, and we obviously what happened to him. Unfortunately, he had stage 4 cancer, but I guess I could say from that experience is that life works in mysterious ways, and it's clear that Tom wanted to do everything that he possibly could to be the best person that he could be post those tragic events, and it seems like based on what they showed of his fighting career and based on his training regimen and stuff like that, that he is trying to put the pieces back together to try to not just be the best fighter he possibly can, but the best human that he possibly can. And that to me was the coolest part of the whole thing.
I know. And they even showed the championship that he won on the regional circuit in his first fight after Ashley passed. I mean, pardon me, after now I screwed it up. Now after Sam's passing.
Yep. There you go. There you go.
Um so as we talked about, I'm not going to go too much into detail as to you know what the strategies were for this fight because it was pretty clear this was going to be a traditional striker versus grappler kind of matchup. Ryan Loader, I think he had one loss entering this fight. Tom was 9-5, fought in a whole bunch of promotions, but as I kind of noted in some notes that Zain and I have, most of his opponents when he fought them either barely had a winning record, were 500, or had a losing record.
Yeah, Ryan Loader going into this fight, Izan was 6-1 going into
Oh,
this.
6-1. Okay.
Mhm.
One thing before we get into that fight is they did one segment where Valentina took her team out to Lake Mead, basically told them, get away from all the drama inside the house. Kind of understanding, as Dana even mentioned during a segment on the show, that basically at this point now, having no communication with home, no communication with the outside world, kind of resulting, like you see what happened with Cooper and Loader. And to kind of cool tensions, she had this experience, and all I'm going to say is it was very rewarding for her team. And between this and what happened in the Cooper Loader situation, when Valentina Shevchenko decides to hang it up, whenever that may be, whether it be 1 year, 5 years down the line, whenever she decides to finally be done with competing full time, she should be a coach full time.
Oh, she'll be a coach or she'll be some sort of broadcaster or content creator for the for
For
the
the
U
UFC.
for the UFC internationally. Yeah, I mean she just has she has that look and that personality about her, and it's clear that when she means business, and when she means that it's time to relax, just like the circuit clip, just like this clip at Lake Mead, she literally means to relax. So it's good to see that she's really pulling back the curtain and trying to do the best that she can for her team and as well for herself too, because I'm sure that this whole season,
This is one big training session for her too.
right. One big training session for her on top of the training session that she has for the Grasso trilogy fight later this year. So I'm sure it's already a lot for her. So to see her entire team take a break was fantastic.
Yeah, she kind of knows the mindset of a traditional martial artist and applying that to the world of MMA and the world of the UFC. We've talked about fighters who can do that. We just had a UFC pay-per-view headlined by Alex Pereira and Yuri Prohaska, who are two other fighters who do that as well.
Right. And have their own unique training methods about them too. So it's really kind of like not a trial and error situation, but one of those things where fighters in this day and age and the fighters that you're seeing become successful are different breeds in their training methods, like Valentina's, and the other two examples you gave in Prochaska and Pereira are just two examples that you can add to a longer list of guys and girls who just have their own unique sense of just mindset and comfortability in being some of the baddest fighters in the world. So it's good to see that even with the relaxation, it's almost like she's training everybody's brain to be like, okay, if you're in this mindset all the time, your career is what you make of it. And I think that was the biggest overarching lesson out of this particular segment. And I'm sure you probably agree with that too.
Absolutely. Nothing better that can be said. All right. 5-second countdown. Okay, so now we're gonna get right into the fight. There wasn't much of a fight to get into because Ryan Loder, and Tom Theocaris threw a low kick to start, missed it. Ryan Loder pressures him, takes him into the cage, takes him down, rains down the ground and pounds, and pretty much it's done from there. Ending up with a what was it, an arm triangle?
Yeah, an arm triangle submission, and one that looked very, very easy from the perspective of Loder to latch on. This was your typical striker versus grappler matchup. Could not get any easier than what it was. Very, very clear what the game plan was for Team Shevchenko. Don't let the Iocaris get it off and land a big right hand or big left hook to get Loder in trouble. And obviously, Loder's game plan was to avoid the striking altogether, get it to the ground, and get the win. And this was one of the easiest wins I've seen in my recent years of watching the show. And it's clear who the better fighter was here. I was kind of underestimating Loder a little bit. I thought, okay, if this fight can stay on the feet, Theocaris might catch him, and it might be an all-out war. And I was wrong about that from the start. So I can admit I was wrong there, but what I can tell you is
I knew I had the trepidation, of Tom, considering, as we talked about, his record heading into this and his fight history. But at the same time, I kind of had that mindset that, okay, as long as he stays on feet, because they showed his highlights from the regional circuit with Unified and such, and Tom would always land something very early on in the fight. And that's what I was like, okay, Tom can win this. If he catches him early, if he rocks Loder early, Tom can win this. But unfortunately, he missed the first kick, and Loder went right in and showed no mercy.
Yeah, he showed no mercy for sure. And I'm gonna
what did you say before? It was like 15 to 20 punches sequence.
Yeah, at least 20 punches of ground and pound. Some of them were hard shots before the submission was set up. So once you saw him softening him up, if you will, you knew it was a matter of time before
I honestly thought the fight should have been stopped at some point during that punching sequence.
I think so too. Although Mark Smith did give Theocaris plenty of chances to escape, which he briefly did. The only issue is that he escaped into the wrong position and got caught. So, yeah. And sometimes that happens. As I just alluded to, one of the easiest wins that I've seen in my recent years of watching The Ultimate Fighter. And truly, I feel bad from the Theocaris side, because if the takedown never happens, I'm curious to see what skills Theocaris would have literally brought to the table in a pressure cooker situation like that.
But Dana did say a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the big comeback that happened a couple of weeks ago, that Omran won. Sometimes, right. You can have a good day, against the Shandakan. That Shandakan was having a good day, and then he just ended up getting caught. Yep. Or Valentine's knockout against Giannis. Giannis didn't get to really show what he had either, but sometimes, and Dana mentioned it, you just get caught and you just don't have a good day. And Iocaris can show, at another point, maybe what he truly has. Unfortunately, you kind of alluded to it. I just need to play a sound effect to prove the point.
These things happen in MMA.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it'll be interesting to see what next step Theocaris takes from there, whether it's going back to the regional scene. Obviously, he was in Unified MMA for a little bit and a couple other promotions and sort of if he gets at least one chance in the UFC to prove what he has. But that remains a discussion for another day. Loder now moves on to the semifinals and what I think has a chance to be a very competitive middleweight bracket, depending on how the next few weeks shake out to be.
Absolutely. I said entering the season, I said that middleweight division was full of talent.
Oh, for sure, and you could arguably say, even though we're not at the finale yet, that the best middleweight in the competition is still remaining, which is good. Which is good to see. So
absolutely. All right, we have one qualifying fight, first round fight, whatever you want to call it, in each weight class left. Well, next week it's the last featherweight first round fight. As I mentioned before, Edwin Cooper Jr. It is his time, and he's going to take on Myron Santos. And all I'm going to say is, if Edwin Cooper Jr. does not get his head on straight, if Valentina Shevchenko's efforts to get Edwin and her teammate and his teammates' efforts to get Edwin Cooper Jr. to realize the opportunity he has in front of him and not lay on the fact, oh, I train with John Jones, I train at Jackson Wink, I'm undefeated, etc., etc. And they kind of alluded to it at the end. Myron Santos could kill him if Cooper Jr. does not.
He could.
He could. And if you notice, by the way, because you kind of alluded to it last week, you had all these concerns entering the Loder Theo Karras fight because they didn't show much of it. They did the same thing here. They just showed the entrances and just, fight is on. That doesn't give a good sign that
no,
next fight go very well for one of those two.
No, and it certainly doesn't. And to add insult to injury, icing on the cake, whatever you want to call it, when you got Myron Santos in the end of show feature saying that it's going to be a first round demolition, you know things might get bad very, very quickly.
And in the episodes in the preview narration, they say Edwin Cooper Jr. looks to leave the house drama behind him. It's like, okay, this is now officially a big storyline of this TUF season.
Yeah, no kidding. But in typical Ultimate Fighter fashion, our prediction that we're about to make right now will be somehow wrong, and another twist and turn in a crazy season from a fight perspective would continue. But I think we know where we're going with this. I would like Santos to win impressively. He could win by whatever he wants, first round KO or submission. In
the words of that. Zain, in the words of that Irishman that we're getting sick of talking about, and his fight that's still to be determined, one round.
No, literally, it will be done in one.
It will be done in one. That is my prediction. Santos is saying one first round demolition. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go first round demolition, Santos.
Are you saying knockout or submission though? Do you have a preference, or do you not care?
I mean, in reality, I don't care. But I'm actually trying to think. I might go with a TKO.
Okay, I think it's going to go one of two ways. Either Santos smokes Cooper Jr. or Cooper Jr. wins the most controversial decision in Ultimate Fighter history.
So just giving the backgrounds, because I mentioned we have the fighter notes and such. Edwin Cooper, 6-1 pro record. We mentioned Jackson Wink. He's fought in LFA 4 times. He fought once in the PFL Challenger Series, didn't end up getting a contract. His last fight actually was that Challenger Series fight where he won against Troy Lamston. That was in March of 2022, though. It's been 2.5 years since he's gotten in the cage. His last fight, actually, he was supposed to fight in the LFA in February 2023. I couldn't find a reason why that fight didn't end up happening. Myron Santos, though. Oh, this is the guy I mentioned as a dark horse. 13-1 pro record.
Yes, you did. I remember.
He's only 23. He's a Vale Tudo fighter who's fought in Chuto, Brazil. He's fought in LFA. And his sole loss. Hey, this is a name for you TUF fans. Very recent name, Dan Argueta.
Yeah, you want to talk about experience for a dude who's only 23? That's as experienced as you could possibly get.
I call him one to watch out for. A featherweight at the start of the season. It would be actually a disgrace to me if I did not say Santos first round TKO.
Right. I mean, Oh, right. I mean, now with everything you just said,
And now I have to lock that in.
You're forced to pick him at this point. Okay, so I guess we could say with that being said, we can both agree that Grasso will retake her lead 4-3 next week. But obviously, this fight remains to be seen. That's going to do it for that's going to do it for
that means we do know that means what the final middleweight fight's going to be. We're not going to make a prediction for that just yet. We'll talk about it next week, but that means in 2 weeks the final middleweight fight's going to be Mark Holm taking on Patty.
Yeah, because those are the only two guys in a division that have yet to fight, so it only makes logical sense that that's obviously the next fight. With that being said, with our predictions out of the way, that's going to do it for another edition of Tough Enough. Again, this is the Ultimate Fighter Team Grasso versus Team Shevchenko Aftermath, presented by Playback. We thank you so much for tuning in. Just wanted to quickly remind all of you, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. As we mentioned at the very beginning of the show, we are very slowly but surely approaching 1,000 subscribers. If you like what you see on this show, the MMA Outsiders, my show, Bando's Breakdowns, and every other show on the network, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss anything outside outside of the network traditional content. I get it's inside with our traditional shows as well. So stay tuned for all of that. And just wanted to quickly remind all of you before we get out of here that this show is presented by Playback. So the more that you would support Playback, the more that you support us, the more it helps us out. Again, you can go to playback.tv/ETB Network and join our community today. For myself, Zain Bando, that's Tom Albano. I know we will see you guys next week for episode 7 of Tough Enough and another edition of the MMA Outsiders, where we will recap UFC Denver and so much more. But until then, we will see you guys later. Have a good one.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.